I came to the United States with my mom when I was 2 years old, came to New Jersey to school in Edison Job Corps. We had a trade, moved to New Brunswick, and as time goes by, I get caught up into the street life. You know, I had a conviction in '91, went to prison, got deported from Louisiana to Antigua, and while I was in Antigua, nobody was there. They just, detained me in Antigua. And 1994, I came back because of my son mom had a drug addiction and the kids was on the street. So I came back to take care of my family. And when I came back, I get caught up again in the street, and I went back to prison. And in 1997, I was released, and ever since from 97 to 2009, I was clean. No problem with the law, no issue with anything. And 2009, March 11th, I went to take care of a traffic violation in Freehold, New Jersey. And that's when immigration came down. They have a detainer on me. They were looking for me. And that's when I was indicted for re-entry. And I went to re-entry court. I went to the federal court in New Jersey, in Trenton, New Jersey. And the federal judge was kind of confused because her statement, I've been here for so long with no criminal activity, the re-entry was kind of impossible. But anyway, I got 18 months for that. I had most of the time was in the county in Freehold, New Jersey. And then I went from there, I went to federal prison in Pennsylvania. And on September 7, 2010, my time was up, and immigration picked me up at that time. And I've been in immigration detention since I got released 2 weeks ago.
Why were you, even though your time was up a year before?
Well, my time was up, and they was trying to remove me back to my country. And being I was removed before, they figured it was been easier, which is not, because 20 years ago is different than now. 20 years ago, they need a birth certificate just to put you on a plane. Now they need more than a birth certificate, and I don't have those documents. I never lived in the country to have those documents. So I keep fighting my case. I fight my case as much as I can with no attorney. I lost my case in 2011, and when the judge in York, Pennsylvania told me I cannot appeal his decision. And I was like, why can't I? It's my choice to appeal his decision. So I appealed the decision anyway, and the BIA remanded the case back to the court. And ever since I appealed the judge's decision, that's when my transfers began. I've been to 7 detention centers in 25 days. From York, Pennsylvania to Louisiana, Louisiana to Alabama. I was taken to Alabama on a bus on a Sunday by myself. No other detainee but me, by myself on a Sunday to Alabama on a Sunday to DeKalb County in Alabama. Thursday, I was transferred back to Alabama on the bus.
Back to Louisiana.
Back to Louisiana. From Alabama to Louisiana. From Louisiana, I went to the federal penitentiary, Oakdale. And everywhere I go is like every 2 or 3 days, pack it up, you're leaving, pack it up, you're leaving. And my question to the officials, why am I being transferred so much? I was told by several ICE officers, oh, I got caught up into the transfer.
I want to ask you about Tiombe Carlos, who died of an apparent suicide in York County Prison after being held in detention just like you for nearly 3 years, despite her well-documented severe mental disability and calls by her family for her release. She came to the U.S. as a legal permanent resident 30 years ago, was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia at the age of 15. Physicians for Human Rights verified that diagnosis in 2011 and recommended intense medical treatment and also suggested she be put in the care of her family, but she wasn't, and she committed suicide. Did you know her in prison?
Yes, well, they separate the females and the males, but as time goes by, I've been in the prison for so long that other individuals tell me about her situation, tell me about her. But what I know about her that she attempted suicide before. And immigration didn't pay attention to that. This was a second attempt now. The first attempt she did it, they caught her, and they're like, okay, and they stop it, and then they remove her from that situation, and they put her in herself. They put her by herself again. And this time, when she tried doing it this time, she succeeded, which is kind of sad that she have to get out of detention that way. Because she's been in detention for a period of time, over 600 and something days, just as I am. And when I asked about this, when they called me to get released, I was shocked. They said, Mr. Pierre, you're leaving? I said, I'm leaving. And I said, why? I already know what happened, because, they like to tell you things in the piece by piece, but I already know what happened. So it take for her to commit suicide, for them to take a look at my situation to have me released, which is not fair.
And they just released you, unconditionally. You can stay in the country.
They gave me a paper, which I have here, say report to the Virginia office. I live in Washington, D.C. And I went to the Virginia office like a week later, and the guy looked at the paper. He didn't say a word to me. He said, I'll see you next May 20th, 2014. That's it.
So do you face deportation?
Well, as far as, they didn't even say, they didn't tell me nothing what's going on with that deportation. They haven't told me if I'm still face deportation, if I'm still be deported. Nobody haven't talked to me about that situation.
Now, neither you nor Tiombe, the young woman who committed suicide at York, were being held on criminal charges.
No, it was
but
all
you were held for
detention.
more than 3 years.
More than 3 years in detention.
And did they explain why her suicide would have you released?
Well, because it opens an interesting topic, because why detention? We've been in detention for so long. And the question is now, why we have to be in detention for this long a period of time for someone to take their life? Which is not, it's uncalled for. Which
leads us to the conditions in these detention centers. Yes. You have traveled through many detention centers. You even mailed a sandwich to Families for Freedom to show the kind of food you were being given. Talk about the conditions.
Well, every detention I go to is different. I was, like I said, the sandwich I mailed to Family for Freedom, I was in Antigua County, Alabama, and the food in the detention centers is terrible. I'm gonna keep it raw as I can. It's terrible. In York County Prison, they give you one meal every day, in the morning, cereal every morning, and eggs every morning. They don't change it at all.
But you have 3 meals in the day.
We have 3 meals. You have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But it's basically the same thing over and over and over again. Not warm, not lukewarm, ice cold. No microwave over there. Louisiana, the food is a little better because it's a little warm. I was in Elizabeth, New Jersey, CCA. That's a detention center. It's all detainees. So the treatment was different. There was going by detention policy. So
some are the immigration detention facilities where people haven't committed criminal acts.
Yes, ma'am.
And then some are jails where you're
county jails, where you just mix with county people. Yes, you mix with county people. I was mixed with county people. I had cellmate of county doing 40 years, robbing, murder, child molesters. We all mixed with these people in that county jail, York County.
Can you talk about York County, the jail there, and what the conditions were like? The reports of guards pitting prisoner against prisoner.
Yeah. They have recently they call it retarded Olympics, and they put in each other.
Who calls it that?
The guards that work there. That's the name they give it, the retarded Olympics, and they have not detainees, county people. Well, the unfortunate ones that don't have no commissary. Nobody come visit them, fight each other for coffee, food, etc., etc. And that just came out to the, officers got suspended for that, and, the investigation is still going on. But just to let you know, in York County, it's been suicide attempts and suicide in the past months. County people, such as detainees. It's like every 30 to 60 days, you hear is a code. Oh, somebody commits suicide. Oh, somebody commits suicide.
David, can you talk about the effect on your family? You have 6 children.
Yes, I have 6 children. I have 2 in the military. And
where are they serving in the military?
Angelica she's in Texas right now. She did 2 tours already. And Raheem, he's in the Navy. So who telling where he be at? He's home with his mom now in Florida. And my kids wonder that. Why am I being held in detention for something I did 20-something years ago?
Abraham Paulos, can you give us the big picture that David Pierre is drawing for us in his own case as he traveled from one prison to another? ultimately released because a fellow Antiguan prisoner who also had not committed a crime, what was detained for 3 years, committed suicide.
Right. I mean, I think the biggest picture here is sort of legislation that was passed in 1996 that started this language around mandatory detention. And what mandatory detention is that if you're considered an aggravated felon, which doesn't have to be aggravated or a felony, in immigration purposes, what this does is that it puts you in a category where you don't get bond, right? It puts you in a category where you have to stay locked up while your whole case is going.
What do you mean an aggravated felon? An
aggravated felon could be a categorization that immigration puts out there that could almost be anything. In 1996, there was the Anti-Terrorism Effective Death Penalty Act and also the Illegal Immigration Immigrant Responsibility Act, the IRA. And what it did was expand deportable crimes. And they put these crimes into two categories. One being crimes involving moral turpitude, which is sort of like misdemeanors is probably the best way to describe it in the criminal legal system. And then you have what is known as an aggravated felon. What that means is that if you've done time over 364 days, or something that under the act they consider violent or I would probably say dangerous, a dangerous crime. They don't really explain it, and it's quite vague. The impact of being an aggravated felon means that you will be subjected to mandatory detention, which is what Dave went through for years, and he couldn't get bond. And a lot of this time, why that is there, we don't really know. I mean, I think it's arbitrary detention is probably the best way to explain it.
Even though you've served time in jail, you served
for sure.
2 years in jail for a drug offense, still, decade later, he's picked up, more than a decade later.
Right. In 1996, they made it retroactive. So it doesn't matter if you've committed a crime after the legislation had passed. They can go as far as back as the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. You could almost do maybe a month in jail, right, and served out your sentence. Let's say if it was for a sale of a controlled substance, and you might have even gotten probation or parole, right? They can still come back right now, raid your house at 4 or 5 in the morning, take you and have you under mandatory detention.
And talk about Tiombe. What happened to her?
Well, my heart goes out to the family, especially what she's gone through throughout her whole life. With the Tiombe Carlos case, Dave was the one that actually told us about her. It says, hey, there's this Antiguan person in there. We might want to look into it. When we started looking into it, the most outrageous thing that we had seen was her mental disability. We saw that she was in need of some intensive support and intensive care. We think the Tiombe Carlos case is not unusual. It was unusual that it came to our desk, but we do think that there are many people with mental health problems languishing in detention centers. And Tiombe Carlos, again, under the mandatory detention statute, was mandatorily detained. And she had been detained since February of 2011.
What would immigration reform look like at the national level? The dreamers who've been protesting, the young people?
I think immigration reform on the national level, I think there needs to be sort of a separation between the criminal legal system and the immigration system. We've already, as a society, sort of entrusted this criminal legal system to sort of say, hey, all right, look, you've paid your debt to society, this is your sentence. Right now, we're looking at folks, non-citizens, getting practically sentenced to life, right, which means that they cannot come back into the United States. So I would say that would be the biggest thing, is sort of separating the criminal legal system from the immigration system, and also repealing a lot of the laws that the 1996 legislation put us in. What's been sort of, put out there right now as immigration reform is only adding to the 1996 laws. It's only adding more enforcement, more more convictions that will lead you to deportation.
Families for Freedom has asked for an evaluation of what happened with Tiombe Carlos.
An independent investigation, because in the beginning when they wrote their sort of notice, 4 of the offices that are going to look into the suicide all come from Immigration Customs Enforcement. And so what we're saying is we want an independent investigation outside of those that were supposed to take care of her, because we saw how that worked out.
And Dave, Pierre, let's end with that question to you. What does immigration reform look like in this country that would satisfy you?
Well, To satisfy me and all the immigrants in this country, we just need an opportunity. We just need a better system, a better fix of the system. It's broken. Bad is broken bad. I've witnessed it, 3 years in detention. It's broken bad. It just needs to be fixed.
How does it feel to be free?
It's wonderful. I didn't thought this day would have come, you know. I know it would have come, but I didn't know it would have come and somebody taking a life. And it's wonderful to be free. It feels good. Now I could, you know, let everybody know my situation, my story. So I hope for the next person that go after me will have to go through the same thing that I went through or the female Tiombe went through, to take their life just to get released.